I'm in Long Beach. I teach at Cal State Long Beach now. So I'm not even in Sacramento anymore.
Can we talk further about the possibility of pictures?
Yeah, I can get pictures, or I know some that's here in Sacramento. BJ has them, he's right around the corner. And he has the Black Panther VPP, it's about time.com.
Yes,
yeah,
a wonderful
that's
website,
BJ.
by the way. If you're interested in the history of the Black Panther Party, there's a great website with all kinds of materials from all the different chapters around the
And I was
U.S.
at City College when the BSU shut down City College to get the Oak Park School of African Thought. All right. I was also one of the Oak Park 4 arrested for the police that got shot. And I also read in here where they said the shots came from the fire station. Well, they told us it came from the Black Panther office, and I spent a year in jail in solitary confinement fighting that. So it's a whole lot of stuff that's right and a whole lot of stuff that's not right. But I think sometimes you can get a different history if you look at it from an African American perspective, because the way it happened with us being in that building when the police shot it up was a whole lot different than getting it from some outsider who wasn't there. So there's a whole lot of stuff in here that I saw that I remember, but I remember a little bit different.
And let me just say that it's it should never be read as the walking tour of Central Oak Park, right? It should be read as a walking tour, because everybody's is going to be a little bit different. But let me answer your point about Stanford Junior High, because I think that was a very, very important incident, the burning down of the junior high school, but perhaps more importantly, the decision not to rebuild it. And actually, because again, it's another example of a choice to disinvest from the public infrastructure of Oak Park. And so I actually have had a student go in and read some of the materials about that, some of the school board meetings around that decision, and I'm hoping to learn more about that. So thank you very much for mentioning it.
Well, that school, I graduated from Stanford Junior, and the guy who burned it down was supposed to graduate with us. So we all went on to Sac High, and he didn't graduate. So we all went to a party that night, and we was drinking. And I think he was 17, 16, 17 years old. We came back, we had a guy driving us, and he had also bought some liquor for us. He was 20-something, and he had picked up a girl at the party. So he wanted to get rid of us. So he sent us to the gas station to get some gas. So we went to get this 5-gallon thing of gas, and coming back, and that's how that happens.
Thanks very much.
Also,
Yes.
information was also left out, just like Stanford. They didn't include Sacramento High, which was the main route of the Oak Park High School.
Yeah.
And then when McClatchy was built, it was for William Land Park. And that was the differential of you know, that needs to be brought out, is that Sac High and Stanford were the main educational centers of Oak Park.
And this is Robert Robinson. He was with the NAACP, and I was with the Black Panther Party, so we both knew each other back then.
You don't care to elaborate on the nature of that relationship?
Oh, we were good friends.
Yeah, we were very good friends.
We both went to City College. I was in the BSU and he was in the Pan-African Student Union.
Now, I was in the BSU too, but see, we had different jobs, because we had to shut the campus down, and my job was different than some of the other jobs.
So let me see if I understand what you were saying. That you think the construction of McClatchy High School contributed to further segregation, racial and socioeconomic?
Yeah, because most of that time, the African American movement was centered in Oak Park between that's ironic that how you move the boundaries, but truly it was from 12th Avenue to Y Street, and from Stockton Boulevard to Alhambra Boulevard. Those were the constraints of what we could consider Oak Park as Afro-Americans. All the rest outside of 12th Avenue was referred to as the Fruit Ridge area.
Right, and that's consistent with my understanding too, that the Fruit Ridge, that adding that southern section is something that has happened relatively recently. But I think maybe not enough attention has actually been given to school attendance boundaries and the geography of those in understanding the history of neighborhoods like Oak Park. I think more work could be done on that. And I think there's a lot of attachment to one's high school. So I think that was a really important drawing of lines on maps that geographers and historians can pay more attention to. Thanks a lot for your comment. Cordia.
Yeah, Robin, I wasn't going to say too much, and I know I talked about Sacramento. There are a couple of points. One was that the Oak Park post office occupied the building before the Observer was there.
Yes.
Now, and there was no reference made to that post office being present. The other one was that there was a picture there of George Sebron.
Yes.
And he was pointing to a map.
Yes.
There was a gentleman standing there that I think was Leonard King, who was a professor of mine in sociology at Sac State. And I think he was also the person who was very much involved in busing. Once, I guess, the laws have been changed and they said they were going to desegregate the schools in Sacramento, that I think it was Professor King who was involved with Sacramento City in drawing lines so that busing would occur as they tried to desegregate the schools throughout Sacramento. And where my husband and I we had children and they were attending school in the South area later, busing also involved busing of children who were of Latino descent, who lived in the Washington neighborhood, who were bused out to the South area because busing took place for many years. I think even from Stanford, I think, where I also graduated from, but earlier than him.
Well, thank you also for those comments. I have a colleague in sociology, he's retired, Dean Dorn, who is talking about Leonard King. And so I did not know, however, that he was in that photograph because I've never met him myself. So I will pursue that line of inquiry a little bit more. And yeah, I think the whole issue of busing, of course, is really, really interesting because I think it was, in large measure, a failed social experiment. I think many people were well-intended, but I don't think it ultimately was the right policy. So thank you for mentioning that too. Elaine. Yes, Dunlap's dining room. It was just too far away from the other sites to be incorporated in this. And that was the issue with some things along Martin Luther King Boulevard as well. And that's why there has to be part 2, 3, and 4, right? And also about the earlier post office. Yes, indeed, the Observer Building was the earlier post office, and there were actually a series of those even before that in Oak Park. So that in and of itself would be kind of interesting to track the post offices through Oak Park and why they moved as often as they did. Maybe it was a sort of spoils system and different people were being rewarded. Yes, Al.
Well, first of all, I'd like to point out that this street planting was the first time that street planting was done in the city of Sacramento. It was an attempt we made to try to rejuvenate and pep up 35th Street. The other thing I'd say is that the post office had every intention to move to a very isolated location before they built the place on 35th Street. And we really put a lot of pressure on the post office to locate on 35th Street. And again, it was another attempt to keep the 35th Street business community running.
Thank you. I think that's really interesting given how important street planning then became subsequently as a way of reinvesting the street and making it more attractive. Yes?
These tours going to be strictly self-guided, or are you planning to have any guidance?
Well, Both, I think. So the booklet will be available to people, but I also really do think it would be fabulous to have guides available, people with different backgrounds and different experiences to be, part of the interaction around this. So again, I'd love to see something happen, perhaps with Sac High and Hiram Johnson. I don't know, I'm open to suggestions. I have a day job, so it's hard for me to sort of be the person to do it, but I would really encourage anyone who wants to use this work that's been done and any future work building on it to run with the idea, for sure. Bill?
You mentioned Clarence Caesar's thesis.
Yes.
And you're aware that he's getting ready to retire pretty soon, so he may have some free time. So I wonder if we can help him and encourage him to write it as a book, if there is such a need for it.
I would be very happy to add my voice to those encouraging him to take that on, because this is a fabulous master's thesis that was done, and all of us who do any research on African American history or historical geography still turn to that as the gold standard. So thank you.
You know,
Yes.
we went back 100 years. You never did address the heavy Italian ancestry that was kind of building the whole part.
Well, I mentioned that with reference to the erotic grocery store. But you're right, that wasn't given a lot of attention. But yes, if you look at the city directories where you can see the name of everybody that lives in Oak Park, that was a significant ethnic group. And again, it reflects the history of immigration to the United States from Italy during those decades when Oak Park was being built up. So thank you. Yes? Eight generations. I will be the first one to admit that this is limited in terms of the territory that it covers, and again, this is one walking tour. There are opportunities for a lot more, and really anything that's over there on Martin Luther King Boulevard, including the whole history of Stanford Junior High School, and the Charlotte Baptist Church, which is also quite a few blocks further to the south. But I totally agree with you, and all of these sites will be on my driving tour of African American history, which will someday appear, hopefully. So I totally agree with you. It's limited.